you have found yourself in another episode of
Video Nerds.
I'm the ManNerd.
I'm Skystar.
So how are you doing today, everybody? And you, how are you, Sky?
Oh, I'm good. Just watched a great movie.
Yeah, we got to watch this one together, so that was cool. This one, I got to pick it, so you know what that means. We're back in the 80s again with another vampire movie. And let's get into this. Let's do the no spoilers movie review of Near Dark, which is a 1987 vampire film, and it's got Bill Paxton in it, Adrian Pasdar, I guess that's how you say his name, a bunch of people like Lance Henriksen, which you'd recognize him if you saw him. So many people that it's like, man, I've seen that person before in so many things. So it's kind of cool to see that. So go for it, man. What did you think?
I really enjoyed this. For a vampire in the movies in the 80s, this was really good. It was paced really well. The story was engaging. The lore was there. It was good. It was nicely woven into everything without being like big lore dumps where you need to like learn stuff. It was overall well done.
When you talked about the lore like that, that's what I like about it as well. I didn't even realize it until now. They really don't know anything about the lore. You just figure it out from what happens in the movie, and nobody talks about it. It's pretty cool.
They don't even really say the word vampire in the movie, I don't think. Like I don't remember hearing it.
No, the closest you get is I'm not a person anymore.
Yeah.
That's it.
I mean, you know what they are. Like if you know about vampires, what they are to watch them. They don't say it. Everything's shown. They go out of their way to show as much as possible.
When I first saw this movie, I was more of an adult. I heard about it as one of the best vampire movies to come out, in the 80s. So jumped into that, and mainly because there was supposed to be one scene that's like the most brutal of the time. And I think you know what we're talking about here. We'll get into that, but I think that's what really stood out for me over the years with this movie. But watching it again, there's so many little things that'll stand out now, but that was the biggest thing right there, that one scene.
Yeah, overall, it was good. It had that gore you expect in the 80s.
Yeah, but it also had more terror, like we talked about.
Yeah.
More of the psychological terror. Like, they didn't just kill people to eat.
Yeah, but like I said, that also gets into the pacing of the movie was really well done. The movie jumps right in, hits you with that main plot point early, and then paces itself really well after that, picking up and slowing down in just the right spots to keep the story engaging without going so slow like some of these supernatural, Halloweenish movies kind of get. Like they drag on for scenes, but without like speeding past important stuff.
Yeah, you're right. The pacing was great. It would slow down, like you said, at certain spots. It would speed up when it needs to. They were very good at that. And then the little twists here and there, and the ending. I didn't expect any of that.
Makes sense, especially if you're used to watching those 80s grimdark horror flicks. The ending was oddly satisfying.
All right, so enough being vague. Let's get into the spoilers. So here we go.
Spoiler alert. Spoiler alert.
All right, you've been warned. Let's get into this, man. So let's talk about the first 20 minutes, which just, like you said, jumps right into it. So you're introduced to the main character, Caleb, which I don't know if you really you probably get his last name. Apparently it's Caleb Colton. All right, so Caleb meets this girl. He sees her in the street in his small town, and she walks out carrying ice cream. There's just something about her. He has to go up and talk to her because he's that kind of guy. So he goes and talks to her, and the interactions between them, it just, to me, felt kind of weird on her end, almost like she was acting, or let's say baiting him. So you find out why pretty soon.
So after leading him around town, he thinks he's having fun, but then she starts demanding that he take her home. He tries to pull a fast one with that, because the sun's coming up, and it doesn't go the way he thinks. She ends up biting him and then taking off. His truck doesn't start, so he stumbles out into the morning sun. Yeah, he starts smoking, which is usually a bad sign.
Yeah. When a human being is smoking in the sun, that's not good.
Yeah.
Like, not with cigarettes, just literally smoking.
Yeah, like he his body was burning. Which, I'll be honest, given the time period this movie was made, it was actually pretty good visual effects. Like, this is pre a lot of the CGI that we're used to in movies now.
Yeah, that was good. Lots of burning and sweat, and he just looked sick, and yeah, that was cool.
Yeah, so the effects were really good. Yeah, he looked awful. Like, they did a really good job with that. Of course, again, this is also the 80s, is the height of the drug war, the war on drugs, and so they were probably going for that cracked out, methed out look.
Well, they definitely did later on, but yeah. Okay. And there was like, I thought something was going to go a different way on a certain scene, and we'll get into that pretty shortly.
Yeah. So he gets while he's almost home, crossing his field, you cuts to a scene of his dad and his little sister who see him. They're worried, I guess. That's one thing I was a little disappointed in is, it cuts to them, like you see them, and then it cuts away. So you don't really get to see any of their reactions to seeing.
Yeah, you just get the little sister saying, "Caleb looks sick, look." And then that's basically it.
And then it cuts back to Caleb, and you see him get grabbed in an RV that comes driving by. Like, you see it on the road, it drives by, then you just see him get yanked inside, drives off.
And the weird thing about it is, all the windows are blacked out. It's very weird. What the heck is that? Turns out to be full of vampires.
Which, again, like, they don't call themselves vampires. No one in the movie that I know
they never
ever
say
actually uses the word vampire, which I kind of liked. I did.
Yeah, we know they're vampires, but they just never even say what they are. They never say it. They're just of the night.
So at that point, you get to start meeting the rest of the crew, the vampire people that May seems to be a part of.
And most notably, I like Bill Paxton in it. He was a freak and an asshole. You hate him, but you kind of like him.
He's almost always a treat in the movies he was in.
Oh yeah. Yeah, one person that I didn't even know. I remember seeing this actor before, the one that played the little kid Homer, who is a vampire that's a grown man inside of a child's body because he's a vampire. So he struggles with that. Kind of a jerk anyway, they all are. He is a writer, and he wrote The Final Girls, which was a cool horror movie. I don't know if you've ever seen that.
I have.
You'd have to see it. It's like these kids are watching this horror movie in a theater, and this one girl is watching it because it's like a cult classic, and there was a big old there's sequels to it, and her mom was in the first one, and her mom is dead, so she went to go see it. And it's kind of like a Friday the 13th kind of storyline, but the theater gets lit on fire, and they go to run and hide, and they get sucked into the movie. And it's kind of cool. Kind of like a little comedy, but it's also got the horror aspect of it. And he was also in River's Edge with Keanu Reeves the year before this movie, which I don't know if you watched that. That's kind of brutal in a dramatic way.
Yeah.
All right, so he meets the crew. And they don't know what to do with him. They're going to kill him because they thought he was one that got away, and they don't want to leave loose ends. And eventually, May jumps in and says that she bit him without bleeding him. So he is going to turn. Already has turned. So that makes it really tough for the rest of them. And they never really talk about it, but if one of them, if May died, if Caleb died, would May die? That's the thing I was kind of confused about. They were kind of hinting towards it, but not.
There's definitely more lore going on there behind the scenes that the movie doesn't tell you. And there's a lot of questions. Like the end of the movie brings up a very interesting idea, especially when it relates to vampires. But we'll get to that. But just at this point, it's like, what is the connection between someone who's been turned and the person who turns them? Like,
yeah, exactly.
It's even pretty vague on like exactly what the abilities are that you get as a vampire. Like over the course of the movie, we see them show enhanced strength, durability. Well, not necessarily durability so much as just recovery.
Yeah, like they can get shot, they can get hit by a freaking truck and still go.
Yeah,
and then just recover by the next day. Yeah,
like yeah, it hurts them, but like their general response to that kind of damage is just to be like, whatever.
Like, haha, you're not gonna get me. Let's just talk briefly. Caleb's having a hard time. He tries to go home. He gets a bus ticket. There's a scene there when he's in the bus station where he doesn't have enough money for a ticket. A cop comes up, and I personally thought that was gonna turn into something bigger, like he was gonna get thrown in jail because the cop was thinking he was a druggie. He ends up giving him money and telling him to be a good boy. Then you find out later that a cop in that city actually talked to the small town sheriff and told him that he saw the kid because he was a missing person. So that cop actually did his job pretty well. I was very surprised by that. Kind of looks like he's just going to be a jerk.
Yeah, he doesn't really have the chance to get home. He tries, but like you said, the cop stops him. Then the cop gives him some coins, gets on the bus. But that's where the him looking sickly and just like he's gonna die comes in. He gets off the bus long before he gets anywhere near home.
Still in the same town that the rest of them are at.
And gets picked up by the crew, by the vampire crew again. By this point, they're starting to have enough with this shit.
Yeah, he's feeding on May just to keep going and won't kill on his own. They have a big problem with that because they are brutal killers. And you get to see their own little ways they do it. Severin, Bill Paxton, he is a ladies' man. So he like catches a ride. He's hitchhiking and catches a ride with these two beautiful girls, and he's going to go party with them and of course eat them. So that's how he does it. The little kid one, Homer, he has a bike and he has the bike tilted over and he's lying down on his face, kind of like he had a bike accident. So some guy comes over to try to help him and he eats him. And then hitchhiking trope with May, and that's basically what she did with Caleb, but she didn't actually eat him. So that's kind of cool. You get to see their killing style. Yeah,
it gets real brutal because after this, you know, they're running around, you know, and it does cut back to the mom or the dad and the little sister hunting for their brother. They're trying to track him down. They've gone to the police. In fact, they even go after him themselves.
Yeah, and you don't actually really know that yet, but you get a little bit of it. And for me, I completely even forgot that they were out really actively looking for him until later.
It does not spend a lot of time on that at all.
Yeah, and that's really cool.
You get some scenes where it kind of cuts to it and just as the occasional reminder that this is happening in the background. But that's it. Like, it doesn't really spend any time on it.
Well, let's get into that brutal scene. They're giving Caleb one last chance because he kind of screwed up and won't feed on his own.
The bar scene.
They go to a bar, they lock it, and they just spend this long amount of time just terrorizing everybody. And one by one, ugh.
Everything about that scene is actually well done. Especially, I'm guessing that this wasn't a particularly high budget movie. This scene was just well done. The camera was, the camera shots were good. The scene itself was drawn out. Like, it let you actually, like, it immersed you in that scene. Each kill was played out fully.
Yeah, and each person that saw somebody get killed, they're just getting more scared and more scared until they get killed.
Yeah.
They're just playing on that, especially Bill Paxton. He was really good at messing with them.
Just so well done. And part of it too is all the while, the way they're killing them, you just see this one guy in the back who the scene kind of sets you up to make you think like he somehow just got forgotten about because it's in the back corner. But no, he was being saved because they want him to be Caleb's first kill.
Yeah, and he was just frozen with fear the whole time, standing in the back. And just little moments that you could just see him back there. Oh, and what did you think of the Spurs kill? Never really saw that before.
That was actually a clever kill. I liked that. It was suitable considering most of this movie takes place in the Midwest, particularly around the Texas-Oklahoma area.
Oh yeah, Bill Paxton jumps up on the bar, kind of swipes his spurs over and kills the bartender with the spurs by slicing his neck a couple times. That was just brutal.
Yeah, all of the kills in this were very well done. This whole scene, like I said, it was drawn out. It was well, everything in it was really well established. You got to see a lot of their unique personalities and individual character traits.
And that's one thing, like, there's character development in most stories. This one, I wouldn't say it's character development, it's shedding light on their character. You get to see more of them, of who they really are as you go. Especially Caleb, because he kind of sticks to his beliefs, and he just having a hard time and just doesn't want to kill.
It helps too that overall this movie's big on show not tell. It doesn't have a whole lot of dialogue going on, but it sets itself up so it doesn't really need a whole lot of dialogue.
No, it definitely doesn't. And that's what made this so great. Like you said, whole lot of show, no tell. There's no person that does vampire research, not even the dad that's trying to save his kid and eventually, finds him, which we're going to get to soon.
Yeah.
You get none of that. Nobody even knows what they were. And you don't get a vampire hunter. You don't get any of that. You just get them figuring it out as you go.
And you get also a lot of the brutality of the classic vampire weakness of the son.
Oh, so much.
Especially after this. So ultimately, Caleb does fail to kill that guy. The guy gets out of the bar by jumping through a window. Caleb gives chase like he's going to kill him, and then decides to let that go, which, of course, the rest of the vampires are not particularly thrilled about.
Yeah, especially since the sun's coming up.
Yeah, they're not super happy about that. So they find a place to lay low for the day, which it hints that Bill Paxton's character has been there before.
Oh, not Bill Paxton, Lance Henriksen. Jesse.
Lance Henriksen.
Yeah.
I don't know why I said Bill Paxton. Yeah, Lance Henriksen. Jesse, the character Jesse, has been there before, but it doesn't go into it. You don't really know anything about it. But because Caleb let that guy go, he shows back up later with the police. Shit gets bad fast.
Yeah, so they show up at their bungalow and they basically just have a shootout. And they're getting burnt by the sun because they're trying to shoot outside where the cops are. And then Caleb decides to go get the vehicle, the van, so they can get out of there. And he just gets burnt up. He gets melted. It looks bad. He's actually on fire most of the time. But he slams that thing through the bungalow. They get in it and they get away. That was bloody as hell, him getting burnt, burnt up.
That whole thing, like, he wasn't just, like, he actually catches fire. You see a lot more of the effects of staying in the sun.
Yeah, melted skin turns into just black eventually as it's healing. It's very crazy. All right, so let's get into that night. They get away, they find a place. They're at a hotel somewhere else. And Homer goes outside to smoke a cigarette, a little kid. Well, he's a grown-ass man in a little kid's body. Then he sees this little girl. Becomes her friend, kind of. He lures her up to the hotel room with everybody. This was a twist.
Yeah, he lures her to the hotel room. And already, like, if you've been really paying attention, you know exactly who the girl is. Even though the movie hasn't, like, you've only seen a few scenes with her in it. They've been brief at that. But he takes her up to the room. They're gonna watch TV. You see one of the vampires leave to go after she tells them what room she's from. You see him before he comes back. You see Caleb walk in with May. Caleb immediately recognized her as his sister. Things go downhill quickly from there.
Oh yeah, and Caleb's dad comes in escorted by one of the vampires, and they're basically going to eat his family. And he doesn't want that to happen. And Homer wants to earn his sister so he can have a playmate. Yeah.
It's creepy. But like
very
creepy. The kind of creepy you expect from a movie like this. Still creepy. Yeah, it gets bloody fast. Pulls open the door to get away along with his sister, and like all of a sudden it's sunlight everywhere. It's a minor continuity error in the movie.
Yeah, even though you kind of felt like it was
nighttime.
Midnight because they literally had the midnight screen on the TV.
Yeah, and then all of a sudden it's daytime. But it worked. Like the shot still somehow worked.
So Caleb gets away with his family. What happens next really threw me off. It was something I wasn't expecting, and you see that in some of these movies, but not like this. Not what his dad does to help him. One of those things that you never really see.
Yeah, this is what I was saying. An interesting idea in vampire lore. So in order to save his son, his dad does a full-on blood transfusion. Like drains his son of blood and replaces it with his own, which somehow works.
Yeah, it cures him. He's no longer a vampire.
Cured of his vampirism.
It's kind of cool.
It is a pretty cool concept. I don't think that's a thing you can actually do, but I'm not a medical doctor.
Now, the closest that I've seen is when, with the Bram Stoker's Dracula, they do an infusion with one of the girls just to keep her from dying because, she's bit, and when she dies, then she fully turns. So that's the closest I've ever seen.
But yeah, this ends up saving him. And then it cuts, like, you see him and his family, like, living together, they're having a meal, and, like, for a moment, you're like, oh, everything seems fine. Then you realize there's, like, 30 minutes left in the movie.
Yep, not gonna be fine. Too much time left. And they come back. They steal his sister again, and he has to go after them on a horse, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, it's a nice shot. Like it kind of makes sense. Like they slashed his tires, so this is the only means of transportation. So like they did their work to make the choice make sense.
Yeah, and I like the fact that he gets thrown from his horse because Severin, Bill Paxton's character, comes up, and you find out early in the movie when he first meets May that horses or animals in general are scared of them. So the horse gets scared and bucks him off.
Yeah.
I thought that was a cool little thing there.
It shows that animals have an instinctive fear of them in general.
And they should. All right, so let's talk about Bill Paxton's bloody ass scene. He gets hit by a freaking big rig on purpose.
Yeah.
That was brutal. Wasn't that awesome?
That was a great shot. Caleb crashing the big rig. Caleb crashes the big rig in order to finish him off. Because apparently hitting him with an 18-wheeler wasn't quite enough to do it.
No, his face was falling off, but he was just still in front of that thing, tearing the engine apart, which was weird. Then Caleb jackknifes it, and it blows up. Blows up without even tipping over, which is weird.
Right?
Usually they have him tip over first, at least.
Yeah, it just explodes. Okay. Of course, if by this point in the movie, for most people, your suspension of disbelief will just allow you to skim past that. But even still, I think overall, it was, especially for a movie in '87, it was well done. It was enjoyable to watch. Like, I had fun watching it.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. Even, especially the end. Right at the end when May gets away with Caleb's sister, and they're on the road in the sunlight. Homer comes running after them because he really wants to turn Sarah. Blows up. He gets lit on fire, and you find out that they blow up if they're in the sun too long.
Yeah, which is a pretty fascinating concept. Not like most vampire movies, if they're in the sun too long, they just like melt, burn into ash. But this one, no, apparently if they're in the sun too long, they explode.
Like a literal explosion, fire. Boom.
Yeah, it's definitely interesting.
And you get an unexpected happy ending to it.
So after, like, the one of the group that got saved was May, and so he apparently takes her home and, using his own blood, does a full blood transfusion on her, just like his dad did to him, thus saving her from being a vampire. You get a nice shot of her in the sunlight at the end,
hugging Caleb, and that's it. Happily ever after. Pretty brutal movie, pretty exciting. Like, literally, it gets going, like you said, within the first 20 minutes. The story's very good. It speeds up, it slows down, it speeds up, it slows down.
Keeps its pacing really well.
Now let's get to some ratings here. D&D dice. D4 to a D20. What would you give this bad boy?
You know what? I would give this a pretty solid D12.
Yeah, for me, I want to give it a D20, but I feel like a D20 has to be like something really, really special. This was a special movie, but yeah, I think D12 is definitely a good one on this one, for sure. Definitely not under that.
I admit, I enjoyed this movie quite a bit. It's not quite D20. This was a good, enjoyable movie to watch. Especially if you like vampire movies. This was a good, enjoyable movie to watch. Vampire movies in particular, supernatural movies, anything to do with like werewolves, any of those classic monsters, can have a bad habit of getting into big expositional lore dumps during their movie.
Yep.
Which I get to a degree, but it can still be really frustrating when you have entire scenes dedicated to giant lore dumps and just explaining the universe to you. And so what you end up with is a movie that spends more time on that and not enough time just showing you what's going on.
Yeah, it's refreshing to get a movie like this that just shows you what it is. That's all.
You just got to see the action happening, see the drama unfold, and I really enjoyed that. This was a good, solid vampire movie. Are there things they could have done better? Certainly. But for its time, this is a good, solid vampire movie. So
Oh, for sure. For sure. All right, well, it's that time, man. It's that time to get out of here. We will see you later.
Ta-ta for now.
We'll be right back.